Good evening, everybody. It's past. Can we make a start, do you think, please?
Yes.
Can I just draw your attention to the fact that we are being recorded? Okay. Right. Apologies for absence.
Apologies from Ricky Isgar, Neil Ellis, and Jessica Healy, though she may appear later. She's got some babysitting issues.
Right. Moving on. Reports from the county councillors. We have a surfeit of county councillors here today.
We're replete with county councillors, fine. I think it's the.
You almost have
Oh, do you want to start, Mr. Mutt?
David, if you would start, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. 6 months since the last election, and I felt over my last couple of visits here that I was sort of becoming a wee bit of a postman. I was taking information from you, passing on to my colleagues and the officers of the County Council. And I thought, as tradition is, and I know you don't normally bite or terribly violent here, so I thought I would get the Cabinet Member for Highways, my colleague Mr. John Woodman from Burnham-on-Sea, to come and listen to your concerns. He wasn't quite sure how violent you were, so he actually brought 2 minders with him this evening, some of which you know them, but I will let you introduce them introduce themselves. So carry on, boys.
Good evening. My name's Alan Jones. I'm the Operations Director at Somerset County Council, with responsibility for roads, highways, transport, and most of the things that I'm sure you wanted to raise with us this evening.
Good evening. My name's Gary Bretnell. Some of you will recognise me over the years, various different permutations, but today, in my current capacity, as Programme Manager for Somerset County Council.
And I'm John Woodman. I'm the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport at Somerset County Council. As you can see, I've brought the big guns with me.
Absolutely.
Today. So we all. David might have called them minders, but I call them the answers. But I was billed as coming from Burnham-on-Sea, but I used to live in Mark, and my children went to Sexes School in Kings of Wessex. So this is a route and an area that I know quite well. So I'll let you kick off with your first.
I'm going to hand over to Steve George here, who sort of chairs our highways group, and he sent you, I believe, 2 letters. One was a response to something that you sent us, and the second one was a short list of questions that we'd like you to address, if possible. Steve?
I'll stand up and then look in the eye. Well, first of all, chaps, thank you for coming, John. I know it's pressure of time, and thank you very much, David, for organising it. We are very concerned because there seems to be a disjoint in communications between us. We get very frustrated in wishing to say to us what's happening about so and so, or who do we talk to, blah blah blah, and we haven't always got the answers. Now, we never always have the answers, but we tell them something, and something else happens, or it doesn't happen. We got a letter from you, John, thanks, in response to probably concerns coming from yourself, David, and I think you're probably surrounded by fog related to heavy goods vehicles. That is one of our concerns, and we know it's a difficult problem to resolve, and we're not expecting a miracle, a magic wand. We've been there, but we have got some issues with regard to some of the mitigation measures that were organised 2-3 years ago. We put a lot of effort into, or you put a lot of effort into putting signs up on all the access points to the B roads around Mark, Wedmore, Wookey, blah blah blah. Some of these signs disappeared for no apparent reason, not many of them, but a few, and there have been damage to signs that disappeared. One in particular comes from the Cheddar access road onto the B, I think it's a 3139, I might be wrong, it's the B road, and that was demolished in an accident probably about 2 years ago, maybe longer. And I was assured at the last meeting I came to at County Hall, which I think you organised, David, that these were all going to be replaced, the work was in hand. Well, it's not. We told our parishioners, don't worry if there's mitigation levels in place, and they've not been replaced, they've not been repaired. So we did a survey, we spent time and money going around taking photographs and sending to yourselves photographs of all the signs and all the access points. I accept that there were comments in there which are not easily answered, or questions that are not answered, but the main thrust of it was that these are the signs that should be there in our view. Can you have a look at them, replace the ones that are damaged, and tell us whether it's sensible to put signs in the ones where there aren't signs. Nothing's happened up until a week or two ago. But that's all we had to say about HGVs. We just want the mitigation measures you previously put in place to be maintained and reinstated. Coupled with that, where we are getting significant damage, around this square in particular, we're getting parishioners with walls being knocked down, damage to houses, and it's a safety issue because the lorries are going right up onto verges where there are pedestrians. We thought, well, why don't we have another one of these Darth Vader bollards on that corner at the bottom of Billings Hill? We're talking about the bell-shaped thing. And I went up to London to visit my son a little while ago, and in South London, lo and behold, on lots of the junctions where they've got 20-mile-an-hour limits in a lot of parts of the suburbs of London, there are these bells to stop heavy goods vehicles going up onto these pedestrian footpaths. Now, to me, that would save a lot of damage. It'd save you a lot of time and money constantly repairing signs that are demolished, and it'd save Gary getting threatened and harassed by irate parishioners. It certainly saved me a lot of pain and anguish from harassed parishioners. So we'd just like to know whether that's feasible, whether it can be done, is there a cost involved, blah, blah, blah. So that was one of the other issues that we raised earlier in the year. Rod sent a few letters out earlier in the year, probably about May time, which we just didn't seem to be getting answers to, John. And we get frustrated because we seem to see a disjoint. And I'm glad you brought along your colleague, Alan, the Ops Director, just the man. Because Alan, back in, I think it was July, early July, there were signs going up around the village, do not park here, resurfacing going to take place on the 7th of July. And there were signs put up everywhere, skid hazard. July came and went, August came and went. Beginning of September, the works commenced. Now, nobody takes any notice of the signs anymore. 6 weeks later, is there a disjoint in the department between the people doing the work and the people planning the work? And if there is a problem, let us know, because we can help you. We can communicate with the parish. We can say, look, it's coming, they're coming. There's a problem, they're held up so and so, they'll be here in 3 weeks. But we don't know what's going on, and that's frustrating for us. Because you think we're harassing you, you want to see what harassment we get. Yeah? So that's one topic. So it's planning of work. Could we know what's going on, please? And is there a problem? Is planning the work and getting it done? We also were very concerned about road markings prior to the resurfacing. A few years ago, you kindly did the white lining around our village. It wasn't all done to the way we were told it would be done, but it was done. We since did a survey ourselves. Again, we went out in our cars with our cameras and we thought this would be a good idea if this one was replaced. And this cross the line across this junction is too close to the pinch point, so the car stops there, a lorry can't come the other way. Yeah. It's not been followed up on. Because I caught the vid doing the white lining after the resurfacing. I said, oh great chaps, have you got the details about that junction there? He didn't know what I was talking about. The guys on the ground floor doing the work didn't know what I was talking about. Now that's fine, if what we've said is nonsense, but please tell us it's nonsense, but don't leave it in abeyance so we don't know whether we've done the right thing or not. So all I'm really suggesting, John, is first and foremost, could we have some communication about, are we making a reasonable request? I know sometimes we send everything to Gary and it drives him nuts, and we should send it to the various parties involved. And I've used your traffic choices site, etc., and it's good, but we just don't seem to be getting any feedback. Have I missed anything?
No, I think you've covered nicely, mate, actually. And in 10 minutes, so that's brilliant. So if we could hear some responses, that would be even better.
Sorry we're giving you a hard time.
Well, I'm glad I brought the engineers with me. So I'll hand over to you. Yeah, happily. So I think first of all, from my position, first I can only apologise. That's unacceptable. So that'll change now. The difference will be that we'll give you the information and where you can find that yourselves as well. So it's not just about a regular contact, but it's about self-service as well, because clearly resources are thin and we deal with that. Dealing with some of the issues specifically, for the first time this year, we did a lot of work to try and publicise our resurfacing programme, given the concerns that you're raising and other parish councils are raising. And we found that we were able to limit the number of queries and complaints, but we didn't get it absolutely perfect. And the challenge for next year is that we do that. And that's about both explaining when we book why we don't turn up, but also more importantly, if we're not going to turn up, informing the parish council why we're not turning up. So completely acknowledge that, as does our contractor, and our contractor is bought into that process. So one of the commitments that we have as part of our new highway contract is that they work with us to reduce the number of complaints. They have foolishly suggested they can get the number of complaints in 7 years to 0, so best of luck with that, chaps. But from my point of view, what that does mean is that, for example, they are booked to do the work. Things like resurfacing works are incredibly weather dependent, so if it's the wrong moisture content in the air, the wrong type of moisture prior to the event, or even a risk that it wouldn't settle afterwards, the job is cancelled. That's the technical answer, but the real answer is what we should do is when we know those conditions have changed, even if they're on the day, is contact you and say, we should have been there today, I'm really sorry, we're not going to be here today. We don't actually know when we're going to be back because of the programme, but just to let you know, we're not going to be here today, and we'll be in touch in X amount of time to let you know when that's going to be the case. That's a minimum commitment, and that will happen. And we've done some of that this year, but we didn't get to roll it out to all the parish councils. So again, my sincere apologies for that, but we have improved. The way that I'd say, I'm sure there are some that may think, well, okay, he's saying that, what commitment have we got to that? We were able to do that this year with some of our parish councils and some of our towns. We were able to tell them it's just about rolling it out to all the parishes and all the towns. And in some areas it was better than others. It's about, again, rolling out that good practice across all of the areas. So that was the first one. First one in terms of lining and signing. Gary's been out and about and been working with you for quite some time. I think firstly we have a new traffic engineer appointed to your area. That lady's name is Catherine Tyson. Just want to cover off what Catherine will do, Gary.
Yes, through yourself, Rod, if it's possible for you to coordinate on your side. I spoke to Catherine earlier. She's very keen to come out and pick up some of these issues with you. So perhaps, if it's convenient by yourself, of an afternoon, a walking tour around the village would possibly be welcome.
You one of your men, Gary Warren, came a year or so ago before they implemented the traffic speed restrictions, and that was really useful. He understood what we were saying. Things changed a bit, and everybody's happy. And that's just because he came out and he walked the job with us.
Absolutely. Catherine got the same brief. She's replacing Gary. She's keen to come out and meet you all. She knows the area fairly well, so it's all very promising.
So when you have, sorry to interrupt, Gary, but when you go back to what Alan was saying, when you have work done, does a member of the team walk the job and check the contractors tidied up afterwards and etc.?
Yeah, so we have effectively a highway supervisor that comes back, checks the job and signs that off. The purpose of that, really from a traffic engineering point of view, is A, to make sure the job is done, but also to make sure we commit to the right standards. That audit process is always a challenge because of resourcing, so we simply we can't come in as quickly as we would like, but we will get to it eventually to be able to kind of audit and sign that process off. What I would say, and what's really helpful, especially with an active parish council, is you're the best at doing that, to be frank, because you're there almost instantly. So if you think there is an issue that's substandard, or you're not content with the outcome that you've got, let us know instantly, because it means that we can pick it up and reprioritise that. So we have a programme of audit, but actually if you say the job's not been done to standard, again, there is an argument that says you should be doing that yourselves. I don't disagree with you. I'd love to have the resources to come out the day after the contract's been done, but we're simply not in that place. But if you spot it, just let us know. From that process.
Can I ask how we let you know? So is there an email trail, or is there a... So
the county highways email address, following this meeting we'll share all that information with you, basically to make sure that you're liaising with the right area office. The area office will coordinate all of the works, both the works of Catherine and others, but they're your best people to deal with issues on the ground in terms of highway defect, you've got a problem, any issues like that. The area office is the best point of contact.
Just a question, will we be informed when it's going to happen, so that some of the parish councillors who are on the housing committee could be around and about when the white lining's happening?
Honestly, no.
Because last time we had it happening, it wasn't done correctly.
Honestly, no. Simply because of the way in which we would issue the works to the contractor. The way that we get best value in terms of our
The whole
agreements
blanket contract.
is we simply say that these are your task orders for this week, this month, and to a degree we have to let them programme that work. But I'll take that feedback back to the contractor though, because in their commitment to reduce the number of complaints to 0, they should be able to reasonably say to the Parish Council, actually, we are coming on Monday, we're doing this job, so that we should be able to get to that. I simply wouldn't have the resource or the control to do that at this stage, but I will take that back. It's a reasonable challenge.
Thank you.
Can I pick up the surface dressing itself? I have a statement for you from our highways inspector on the back of some of the comments that came through. I think it's fair to say the letters that come through via Rod to ourselves, rather than respond back to the last one, we thought we can take anything in person. Anything we can address today, obviously, we'll then pick up and square that away with you. But in anticipation, I've got a statement here from, I said, our highways inspector with regards to the surface dressing programme. So, Pilcorn, Glanville Road and Grants Lane will resurface this year, as I'm sure you're aware. The treatment has been swept and inspected a number of times since completion, and the general condition of the works is considered to be good. Further inspections will continue over the winter period. As Alan said, this is a really important time because it really does depend on the time of the year, the moisture content of the air, etc., and the ambient temperature as to how that takes. So it is regularly inspected. Post-winter inspection will be done by March of next year, and any remedial works required will be added to next year's surface dressing programme. Liam Gill is the gentleman concerned. He's, again, I won't go at pains to explain, but he's talked about the ambient temperature and all the rest of the extenuating factors. This year, the advanced signs were put out on site 2 weeks in advance, advising the 2-week window when the works were expected to be done. Unfortunately, due to a fairly wet summer, these dates were delayed and signs were updated as best they could. Take back your feedback, Rod, and I think that's something we can learn going forward. We also further delayed the start of the works in order to avoid the Wedmore Harvest home event. So we try and accommodate where we can. We certainly take on board the comments that you flagged today. Liam himself has said that actually in advertising a 2-week window this year, you're not the only community that have come back and specified, please can we have the fine tuning, please can we have some feedback, and then said, lessons learned again. So thank you very much for your feedback. That's the surface dressing programme. On the lining issues, I'm aware that the lining programme has approached, shall we say, the village on all sides, but not actually gone through the village yet in some areas. I myself have walked around today and I concur with some of the comments about the state of some of the lining. It's clearly faded. I have seen some of that in various different photographs as well. I have spoken to Catherine, and again, as part of her walking tour with you, she'll obviously consider those factors with you.
Should I pick up the bell?
I was just about to move on, but if you want to.
So just to say, in terms of the issue around bell bollard, we don't install those, but you can. All we would suggest is if that's the route you're going to take, that would need to be audited by our safety team. If it creates a safety problem, again, I'll always try and be blunt and direct. In short, if it fails safety audit, you can't have it. If it doesn't, you can.
How would we start the ball rolling on that?
Again through Catherine.
Yep.
Can I just catch up on that?
The area is at the top of Billings Hill, which only...
And the bottom. Yeah.
Well, okay, the top of Billings Hill is the one that I noticed because it's the one I drive on. And it's only become an issue when the person across the road extended the wall of his house onto, I suspect, a bit of the highway verge, which then forces all the HGVs to drive over the grass verge. So,
no, the big issue is the bottom of Billings Hill, David, because there's a person's house there and they've had it damaged about 3 times.
oh, so you were going to put it in the highway, not on the
talking
grass?
about if you come down to the bottom of Village Hill and
Right.
you hit the junction at the bottom on the left-hand corner, there's a street sign which has been replaced about 3 or 4 times.
Oh, I see, okay.
It's missing now, if it hasn't been replaced, and his wall's recently been repaired again. And because large stationaries can't negotiate that junction very easily, and they constantly tear the wall apart.
Rod, is this the property of Mr. and Mrs. Ball?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in
The other
receipts.
side of the road, the verge is all chewed up, admittedly, and the top of it is all chewed up as well.
Yeah.
We'd like to for that not to happen, either by maybe reducing the, we don't know who owns exactly the land, is it highways, but a bollard would be a solution, because it would stop the lorries from driving over these.
So if we create an unacceptable safety risk, the answer is no. We'll need to. But what we would do is part of Catherine's walk around will be to consider what else is there. So whilst I appreciate that you're moving to the a hard fixture to resolve that issue, Catherine will approach it from an outcome. So the outcome you're trying to address is and address it that way. But I totally understand why you feel that that's the right element.
A solution, I don't know. That's just our ideas.
And that's we've done a similar walk around recently with another parish council, and whilst it was about a fixed bollard to resolve the situation, we've actually gone with a lines and signs approach, and it seems to be resolving that issue in that place. But what works in one parish doesn't work in another. That's why we're keen to make sure that the traffic engineer comes out.
Just going back through the list of questions that were emailed through, just like to say, really pleased to see that the new parking restrictions are in place across from the church. That's now operational. It's been sealed, so it's enforceable.
Will that be monitored occasionally by you, man?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. So the signs out there. That's it.
Is that immediate impact? There's parking spaces available there quite often during the day now. So
It was empty today.
Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm really pleased with that.
So just
Hang on, guys, can we just continue? Cause
just on the issue of parking enforcement, if you spot somebody in breach and take a photograph, we can do nothing with that photograph in terms of enforcement. But what you can do, so that doesn't mean don't do it. Please take that photograph, send it through to the area highways team. If we start to see quite a lot of that from yourselves in terms of monitoring, that then triggers effectively the enforcement team to come out and take a look. So because of the nature of, again, the enforcement team, we have to focus on main areas, but if you have a persistent problem, it's always helpful to come and do a blitz enforcement, which tends to address the issues certainly in more rural areas. It's quite creates quite a lot of bad feeling in my experience, but it tends to solve the issue.
that's for us to worry about, really.
But it certainly does solve the issue, and to have the support of the parish council to do enforcement like that it puts us in a really strong position.
And to add to that, this is obviously a new direction for the parish council with regards to having parking restrictions in place. So I had a conversation this afternoon with our traffic engineer, Jeff Bunting. Traditionally, I understand that the parish has favoured having white bars in various locations around the village. And obviously, they are advisory only, and we do know that people will abuse those. So, on the back of the success of the parking restrictions that have gone in, please do consider the offer that was made 2 years ago when we met, which was, please consider actually what you would like as a community with regards to potential double yellow lines. Now, there are associated sign issues with regards to that and clutter issues, certainly, but it is a tool that's available to you and it is on that Traffic Choices website, Rod. So if you want to circulate the information there, please do give it some thought, because it is a tool and a mechanism to help manage the network. I'm very conscious of the fact that some of the parking issues cited have actually exacerbated the turning movements of some HGVs, for example. So please do give that some thought.
Shall I just cover off the last two on your email list, and just in case there are any other additional questions? So just to say, in terms of engagement with with effectively John's team, so me and my officers, I think the reason we're here is because John was very keen, as am I, to make sure that we improve that relationship. So we've both been in post for a relatively short period of time, so it's about improving that relationship and making sure that in particular the area office is a bit more accessible to you. So the highway manager is going to take that forward and make sure that, again, if you've got those issues, but again, any problems or concerns, please raise those with the team, and I'll give you those contact details after the meeting. but if in short you're not getting what you want from my team, let me know. And if you're not getting what you want from me, let John know. But the process of escalation is far quicker, to reassure you. So you shouldn't. And if you're going to wait for something, we'll tell you. We'll tell you why. And in essence, the brief to the team, certainly from John and I, is that we can't do everything. So we might as well be honest that we can't do everything. And if it's going to take a year, we'll tell you it's going to take a year. At least you know. We can have a debate and a discussion, and you can be disappointed about that. But at least you know what our position is. So that's a consistent message across the team. So we'll pick that up. Is that it for highways issues? I'm conscious there's a bus query as well.
Yes, absolutely. So the sign that was damaged in the collision, as you know, you raised that 2 years ago. I actually put in the request 2 years ago. So there can only ever be an apology. I have to say, being a directional sign, it is was low priority. I have to say that because on the back of obviously your escalations and John's intervention, the sign is now being ordered. Typical 6 to 8 week turnaround. So I think you're looking for installation within 3 months. Jeff has also stated the fact that he's aware that obviously that directional sign is on an important junction, but he will also consider potential advanced signing of that in the town itself.
Oh, really?
So it's something he will look at the same time.
It does make a difference, Gary.
Yeah.
It did make a difference before.
I think it's a very pragmatic suggestion, and it's something that obviously with ourselves and Catherine will be picking up with you. The final point from myself really was there are 3 arms to the authority really from a highways perspective. There's the maintenance of the asset, which is the road surface, etc. There's traffic management, which is your signs and lines, and then there's the new assets. They are 3 different areas. My role is really to pull those together. There is a generic contact which we will share with you, but of course you are able to contact each of those 3 arms directly. Again, we will provide you with those details. They are available on the internet. In the first instance, I would urge you to do that. I know obviously the escalation eventually brings what you require. But in the first instance, do challenge the due process. It is there for you to use. In lodging any particular call, you get a reference number. There is a required minimum turnaround time, so you can expect an officer to contact you to discuss the points that you flagged. I'll make sure that Rod has that information ASAP.
For my sins, all of those different services come under my remit, so ultimately I need to make sure all of them are working in conjunction.
Thank you.
And by the nature under mine.
Indeed.
As well. I'll just finish off, if that's all right. One thing, because we're both relatively new in our posts and stuff, but one thing that I've learned is it's better to give these guys the problem rather than the perceived solution, and that's because they've got a lot of tools in their box on how to sort problems out, and a lot of experience of what works and what doesn't work in other areas as well. And it's really good to tap into that knowledge and use that knowledge. So I think that's one thing. But I mean, I hope that us being here has been helpful, and you've got an idea of sort of direction of travel that we want to take the department in.
So far so good. Thank you very much indeed. And
Just
any questions?
very quickly for Gary, and also David, do you remember up at Malthouse when that wall kept being knocked down?
People keep knocking down a wall.
And it's been rebuilt again, and we talked about the signage. I happened to be up there when there was a guy inspecting it, and then he said it'll be done once it's resurfaced. But the signage still isn't there, the chevrons.
I've seen
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
So is it going to happen?
We'll follow that up.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
I mean, it seems like an extraordinary thing to have to do on a country lane, frankly. Say there's a hedge here, and you should go that way, not through the wall. But
Yeah, well, that's young people driving too fast,
so,
unfortunately.
Chairman, you've got anything else?
I have one. Charlotte. Now, before we moving track slightly to the buses, but are there any questions from the Parish Councillors about what we've heard so far? If not, I'm going to pass over to you, Charlotte, please.
Okay. I am a long-standing member of the community who popped away and lived somewhere else briefly and came back again. I went to Wedmore First School, I went to Sexies, etc, etc. I've now got one child in first school, one child at Sexies, and would love them to carry on the same path that I did, which was getting on the school bus and going to school. You'd think that that was an easy process, and you'd think that, you know, living a mile and a half away from a school that you can't walk to would be something that would be able to be handled. The cost on the intake year for my son went from £300 to £690. That then obviously subsequently then has an impact on several different things, because you then have obviously a large traffic flow increase, not only through the Wedmore, you also get it going into Blackford, which then puts a heavy toll onto the inadequate facility at the school, which is the loop, which then has a knock-on effect of increasing the traffic and the danger to children throughout the whole of the Blackford area, while parents try and pick up on side roads and other roads, because 25-35 minutes is not an unheard of amount of time to collect your child. That also has an impact on the traffic flow and movement through Wedmore at certain times of the day, which then subsequently gets everybody's back up, parking, you know, it just self-perpetuates. There are buses driving past bus stops where 2 or 3 children get on who are still on the old rate of £300 and who will be leaving school shortly, and then those bus stops will be empty because people cannot justify £700 to send their children to school on a bus. It's extortionate. Yet the policy still believes that Wedmore to Blackford is a walkable route for children, which in its own right is utterly bizarre. And this is only going to get worse. As those children that are on that leave and then there's no funding left, surely it'd be better to have more children using the bus at a cheaper price, which would then fund the buses, reduce the congestion, increase the functionality of the loop system, reduce congestion in Blackford. You know, something's going to happen. A child is going to get injured because the system, it fundamentally is flawed. So really like to know, first of all, why the cost went up, because there seems to be little justification for it. And what are you prepared to do? I mean, I know we all know the Avalon bus scenario and and we've got berries in and all the rest of it. We know that they've had problems with the buses, but that doesn't fundamentally affect the costing implications. We got offered a place, and I know virtually everybody who wanted a place was offered a place. People can't afford it. I'll have 2 children going there next year. So that's 17, it's, sort of 13, 14, 1,500 quid to send your children to school on a bus. So that's my, and I think many others, significant gripe on the school transport system, and I have written in on this matter.
Yep.
And it's not just the walk from Wedmore to Blackford. You know, kids are expected to walk from Cocklake to Wedmore and further. You know, maybe in the old days when there wasn't so much traffic on the road, that would be acceptable, but it's not anymore.
No, the policy of the 3 mile thing just doesn't work in our community. In a community as rural as we are, it's utterly flawed.
Okay, shall I have a go?
Yes, please.
So in terms of, I think first and foremost the policy application is driven by our education colleagues, because they effectively have to pay for the transport costs associated with that, and undoubtedly that budget is under considerable strain, undoubtedly. We are in regular contact with our education team. What I can ask is that they reaffirm or reassess the walking distance, and that it's still an appropriate route, and it would comply with policy. The importance of the policy is to ensure that we manage a sustainable budget, and again, there are considerable constraints on our county budget across the piece, and that's one of our key drivers to understand how do we manage all of these different aspects. So the impact of increasing school transport routes has a knock-on impact on the number of the ability to fund other aspects. There is only a finite pot of money, unfortunately. In terms of the increase, regrettably, the market for buses and for school transport has increased considerably, and we need to ensure that we're covering an increase of those costs and reflecting the fact that, again, there is an inadequate budget in place to service all of these issues, so that the county ticket cost is there to make sure that it's still viable, that it's affordable for the county council, and that makes a universal provision. We totally understand and have every sympathy with exactly your case, which is the significant cost. It simply is a genuine real-world cost, but with a significant element of subsidy from the County Council. What I would happily do is provide to you and by the Parish Council, if you like, the narrative around that explains that. It sounds as if one of the things we've failed in doing is A, explaining the cost, and B, explaining the increase in particular. So let me take that away. I'll happily write to the Parish Council and explain that. But regrettably, the nature of the market simply is that those costs are considerable. For example, the failure of two contractors recently and one last year has meant that the market there are fewer individuals in the market, which means that prices have gone up considerably. We've seen an almost doubling of costs in the last couple of weeks. We've also seen that operators that are running on old contracts are returning those contracts and looking to re-tender them because they recognise the market is so thin. So genuinely, it's under extreme pressure, and there simply isn't the budget within the County Council to accommodate those sorts of increases. So we're constantly making decisions about how do we manage all of those risks, how do we deal with all those concerns. Regrettably, there is no perfect answer. I'd love to be able to say, absolutely, we need to address this, and we will find the money. Regrettably, it simply isn't there.
Alex, do you want to dive in?
I think Charlotte's point was not that costs, that your costs have been affected. I think we understand that. I think a point was that you've got the people that set the fees have got the supply and demand out of kilter, so that the price has been set so high that the buses are substantially empty. In other words, it's become a pointless exercise to put the prices so high, and if you put the prices down, then you'd get more revenue because more people would use the buses.
And also the
so in other words,
system.
You're not collecting revenue efficiently, is her point.
Yeah, and also the system itself doesn't work because every child that lives outside of a certain area in the village is entitled to a free place on the bus.
Right, Charlotte, can we get David have a go at answer?
Just to sort of try and focus on what we have to do as a council. So we have to provide school transport for people who live more than 2 miles from their school. Free. That currently is a huge challenge. In fact, the team did a fantastic job, I think the week before last, when one contractor literally stopped trading 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that is our statutory duty. We also have this other business for post-16-year-olds where we have the county ticket, which in itself is subsidised. You're absolutely right that the law of supply and demand really has no relevance to us in some ways because we're actually trying to do the stuff that we have to do within the resources that we've got, and possibly currently failing because the cost of that has gone up a lot. Now, I know that my education colleague Frances Nicholson, her postbag is full of issues like this, which is, it's a mile, but it's the most dangerous road in Somerset. It's 1.25 miles, it's the most dangerous road in the, can you make an exception? And frankly, once upon a time we did. But you have to make a decision somewhere as to where you draw the line, and we've had to go to this 2-mile line.
That's not what we're questioning. That's not what I'm questioning.
Okay.
What I'm questioning is if you have got a bus that drives past with 52 seats on it, and 4 of them are filled by people that pay £700,
Yes.
but there are 35 other children that could be on that bus paying £400, the economy works out.
I'm not quite sure that we actually have the systems that would allow us to do that. Because I think the parents either pay for the transport themselves or we pay. I don't think...
Yeah, and that was my next point, is all the children that are allocated, who are out of the 2-mile area, are automatically allocated a free seat on a bus. Yeah. That bus may never be used by that child, ever. But that seat is driven past that house every day empty. And meanwhile, it drives past children who are driven to school by their parents that 1/2 mile down the road, which It's driving past them.
I
Do you know what I mean? And the fundamental running of the department
I
doesn't
am not
work.
an expert on education transport, but I think we'll get a proper answer.
Yeah, so let me explain that position, because I understand and totally take on board the strength of feeling on the issue, and I also understand the economic argument you're presenting. That the issue is making sure that across the piece that economic picture works and is sustainable, and that's why the costings are where they are. Ideally, we'd like to keep them lower, but that's simply because the cost pressures are there, and they're the costs that, with the subject to the subsidy as well, that are coming to the market. So they're predicated on encouraging more people to use them. So we think very carefully about that cost in order to ensure that we're not prejudicing them. But it sounds in this case as if we are. Let me do that piece of work to explain the situation and understand how the counter ticket model works, and then we can take it from there.
Do we perhaps take it a step further, where is it possible to communicate with the parents and say, look, if this price was £450, would you be filling the bus? Or are you not even aware that the bus is half empty?
So the county ticket is always, we always have a very high take-up of county ticket, always have a very high take-up.
But that's for over 16 schools.
Simply because it still represents good value based upon the commercial rates.
Yeah, but that is for over 16s, isn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about
8,
9,
next,
10-year-olds.
We're
We're talking about getting them to 16.
But again, it's about that kind of covering the cost associated with the finances of that.
So what? So we're subsidised. So the younger level subsidise the upper level.
No, not at all. Not at all. Absolutely not. The issue is that we need to ensure that the cost associated with that younger group, effectively with the subsidy, still meets its costs.
All right. Please, Steve.
Just a quick one. Would it be acceptable for us to use the community bus to drive children to school?
So we are considering that. We are considering whether the community bus providers are able to do that. They often don't have the right buses, to be frank, to do that. They're often too small. They're often not the right standards.
Seats is better than no seats.
But what we found, as we know well from the 67 debate,
the 67 bus.
Actually what we're able to do there is debate the concept of perfect would be a bus route. Can't do perfect. So what we can do is, pardon the expression, cobble together an appropriate response which reflects the level of usage within the community. So again, we can feed that back and consider those sorts of issues.
It's a simple question to answer. We use the community bus now for community groups, transport, evenings, weekends, outside the regular runs 4 days a week. If it were used for an hour every morning to take kids to school, would that be a problem?
So let me come back to you. So my public transport manager can respond to the Parish Council via that to effectively explain some of the limitations that are there.
Just trying to help.
No, absolutely, and it's the sort of thing that we do consider as part of that process.
I think the parents would be very receptive to correspondence with regards to bus usage and whether they'd use a bus or not, whether you wanted to ever gain a clear, knowledge of exactly how many numbers and things like that. I don't think you'd have a problem gaining that sort of information.
Right. Are there any more questions? Because I'm aware of the fact it's 8:15.
Can I just add one thing on that bus? Because of this changing situation with the operators, it is moving quite quickly, as you've seen here or whatever. We are looking at this, at a high level to see what we can do. But it's not something you can change very quickly. It is a long-term change and a strategy change more than anything. But don't think we're not looking at it, because we are. Okay.
Any questions for anybody? Because if not, I'm going to say thank you very much to Council for coming out on this lovely evening, and we'll let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody.
Cheerio.
Travel back in time to item 2. Holly.
Okay. I'll talk to you about the cluster stuff later, but I obviously went to that meeting. Interestingly, talking about the buses and then suddenly not being the drivers and things, you know, there is this potential issue that Hinkley have been poaching the bus drivers. It's having a knock-on effect not only on just on bus drivers, but I've also had a big building firm talk to me and say that we can't get scaffolders anymore because Hinkley are nicking the scaffolders and paying them more. So I'm going to arrange to have a meeting with David Eccles, as he only lives down the road and is a neighbour, and he's emailed me back to just say it's very much a big issue and you and I need to sit down and talk about it. So we're going to find out why it's having Hinkley, which is such an amazing thing for Somerset, is also having a very negative impact on the area as well.
But I mean, that's going to get worse, isn't it? Because currently they're employing 2,000, they're going to push it up to 6,000.
But he's willing to chat, so if I have a chat with him, then maybe we'll get him here one night as well. What else are we doing? So I had a licensing general purposes panel, when was that, a couple of weeks ago. It was quite a meaty one, long session. The police were involved, and trading standards about an off-licence in, a food shop off-licence in Bridgewater, run by a Turkish guy who doesn't speak much English apparently. And lots of issues there, but basically repeatedly serving alcohol to already intoxicated people and selling illegal tobacco and all sorts of things. He's been in and out of court in the past. Anyway, we actually got quite meaty and we rebuked his licence, and he's not going to appeal it, so that was quite a good one. Not so good just at Axbury Drainage Board meeting. That was another quite long one. Today I've also been at another licensing panel, and someone trying to extend their hours in Sydenham in a big barn. They're trying to have parties there, but that got adjourned because we only got some information at the last minute. Tomorrow I've got an exciting meeting at the windmill. Lots of walking the footpaths, lots of complaints about things. I do keep putting these requests in, Rod, you know I do. They are quite rubbish at doing anything about it quite often. Had quite a lot of meetings with people about planning and things. Other than that, that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, moving on, quickly. Declarations of interest. Minutes of the Parish Council meeting, can I sign those? Public participation is done. Charlotte, anything to add to this whilst I'm signing?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Right, matters arising.
I've got no matters arising, Chairman. I think matters are
nothing for an hour and a half.
No, financial matters.
Books all balanced again this month, Chairman. 2 members have signed the checks, please. I think Suzanne and Peter.
Right. In deference to our other guests, I'm tempted to bring forward item. Oh, I lost it. 9. Is it 9? Thank you. Yeah, Blackford Village Hall. To consider access issues at Blackford Village Hall. Can I just point out to everybody here, these two gentlemen are here purely to observe, and they are prepared to answer questions. But yeah, we didn't invite them, they didn't have to be here. They've chosen to be here. So can you all be kind, please? Right.
It's like the rest of us.
Yes, we've chosen to be there, haven't we? Oh, yeah, no,
Yes, you have. Yeah. You were elected. So, access issues at Blackford Village Hall. Sue, do you want to have a pop at this?
Yes, well, I brought it up because I had lots of emails and angry parents and people saying to me that the gates were locked. The particular Friday, I think it was the first Friday when it was locked, it was chaos. Absolute chaos from what I've been told by several different people, because people were coming in from both ends of the triangle, and consequently everything got completely blocked and nobody knew what was going on. And it was backing onto the road, and and I thought, well, we know all about the resurfacing of the village hall because we've had it, you know, and I was one of the promoters of let's get it done.
Yeah, you were.
And yeah, I was, and I know that because we use the parish's facilities to get the VAT back, it saved a lot of money. And also, I think in 2014 we put £5,000 towards that. So I did think it was a parish issue, and I thought we should discuss it. That's
Right,
what
now,
we're here to do.
Well, before we dive in, does anybody? Yes, Pete, thank you.
Well, I'm the representative of the council too on Blackford Village Hall Committee, and what I would say is that for a long time it's been a long ongoing thing. We couldn't get agreement over the lane, who it belonged to, and you've always got this business. It's a pity the highways people have gone really, but you know, because if you do something, you then become responsible for it. And there was this issue, and the issue is still there, and that was mainly the issue was that now there's something like 22 cars go in and out of there every day, or every school day then. I don't think they all drop off in the mornings, but certainly in the afternoons. And the children come down through, and the committee were concerned of the fact that, you know, if there was an accident, or if there any responsibility on the village hall, we couldn't get what we considered as a district, as a village hall committee. We couldn't get a really sort of definitive answer about. You know, they claimed that the facilities at Sex's school were absolutely adequate and supervised, and that was the you know, and so that really put the emphasis on us, because it meant that really was saying that, I think I'm correct in saying that if we let them park there, it was really an exception of liability. Now, Margaret and I both, and it's known in the village, that we were the two that voted against locking the gate. The thing is that it's not the parents' fault that they've got to take their children. Some parents have 3 children at 3 different schools, and you have to get there and get back and all the rest of it. The reason that Margaret and I voted against it was pure logistics of locking it and unlocking it and what have you. But I mean, once it's been agreed, as any member of any committee anywhere, then you should accept the majority, and it was a majority, and it was well documented. There were 20 some odd, because I was there when they handed out these things to the main people. I say the main people, there were 20 odd cars that came in the park, and they all were. You know, they all notified that was what was going to happen.
Now, as I understood, the school had notified the parents as well. And I've got a letter here dated the 13th of October. It basically says, don't let the kids go elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know, there is one pick-up place.
Yeah.
Now, I agree, it's not fit for purpose, but I don't think you can shift your responsibility onto another private landowner. It's not illuminating.
I don't think you're not shifting responsibility at all. If the parents want to pick up their children somewhere else, it's entirely up to them.
Yes.
On someone else's land.
It's purely
On someone else's land, there may be an issue there, but having done a bit of checking with my learned friends, there is a right that you acquire to use other people's land. It's a right of vehicular access and also a right to parking. It's called prescriptive right. And you get it after 20 years of use. And it seems to me very little doubt that the village have been using that car park and using that entrance as access to the play area, vehicle access to the play area, for more than 20 years.
Yeah, hang on. Field play area doesn't have any parking facilities.
And?
So should we be letting some in? Well, no, you seem
but the thing is, there is a car park there that has been used for much more than 20 years to get vehicle access to the swing park.
But yes,
and the
but
car
not,
park's just been closed, so nobody in the village now can get vehicle access to the swing
but
swing
not
park.
gaining access to the village hall car park to allow their children to go to play in the park. They're electronic.
Yeah, they are.
They
Yeah, they are.
They are. And they're also, if they've been doing it for this long, they're also entitled to continue to do it as a matter of law, because they've established this use over a period. Now, I'm not a lawyer.
Now I can see that not incumbent upon someone to prove that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to pursue it, but I mean, it would be very unpleasant if we actually got to the point of waving lawyers around. But there is an entitlement, as far as I can tell, if you've been using this access for a long time and using this parking for a long time.
Because the nub of the issue is purely that the village hall committee are concerned about their liability should something untoward happen in the use of the car park by people other than the hall users. Is that might be?
Well, that is the main, I mean, the chairman and the treasurer are here, but that is the main, I think that is the main thrust, isn't it? It is open, and it is open at weekends, and it is open for long periods in the day and what have you, and all the users of the hall have got, well, say there are 22 keys delivered to the people who were contributed, not contributed, who booked the hall.
All I'm asking is there no way that people park there at their own risk? I mean, the Wedmore Village Hall car park's case in point. People use that, and not Village Hall users, for all sorts of reasons.
No, but they have closed their car park, haven't they?
No, they haven't.
Well, they put it all right, and they put a notice
a
out.
private road,
Yeah.
a non-adopted road into the village hall car, and they say the village hall users only let other people park there.
Parish Council's got a car park in the Redmore car park.
Yeah.
Right, hang on.
We're not liable for accidents in there, something falls
We've got
over.
public liability insurance.
Sue, you're going to have to have a point.
Yeah, I was. I mean, it's a social point. I mean, I'm one of the guilty people who use your car park because I pick up my little grandchildren. I pick up Finn from the first school and I go to the car park and I park him there and he goes off to play with all his other mates who do the same, and we wait for the other two children because I pick up some more, and they often go and play and they have a really good social time. The parents chat in the car park. I wonder what we're saying to our children about community here. You know, what sort of example are we giving when village community car park is locked?
Right, Polly.
I'm quite on the sort of same lines as Sue. I think it's a tragedy that now there's going to be so many less children using that playground. I was guilty too. I have been using the loop since this all arose, before it was being locked. My daughter sits in the car for 20 minutes, very, very bored. However, before that, she would be
breathing in lovely traffic views.
She would be playing in the playground with her mates. The others would then come and join in. So I just think it's sad that a lot of children won't be using that anymore.
And there is the point that on the loop, they sit in that car, breathing in everybody's fumes. The cars are all idling because they're all waiting. It stinks by the time you get out.
A bit of fresh air.
Are there any other points from the Parish Council around the table? Any more issues you'd like to raise? Any more things you'd like to say? Because we have a financial interest, we've got a consensus decision, we have a legal right, possibly, and then we have a social issue and a loss of community.
Transport and road safety as well, because the net result, sorry.
Yeah, so that's the net one. We're going to say transport, traffic issues.
People are now using the Sexes car park to pick up their children. They're using the loop on the outside of the village hall car park, and they're parking down Redlands Hill. And that road has no crossing area, as you know. And it's dangerous, and it's just making it more dangerous.
Dennis?
Well, I'm on the governors of USEXs, and one of my roles is safeguarding. And really, by doing this, for whatever reason, you're putting these children at risk. If they're wandering the streets looking to see where mum's picking them up today, I mean, those kids are at risk.
Are there any more questions from? I'll come back to you now. Give you a chance. Is there anything else from around the table? because I think a lot of these have been voiced before, but that's fine, they can be voiced again, not an issue. Now, these two gentlemen they choose not to answer any of these issues. They are really quite entitled to it. If you would choose to answer some of these questions, you would be pleased to hear. But if you choose not to, we'll think nonetheless of you, I promise.
I think I did lay it out in an email
You
to
did.
try and be clear. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read it. We don't feel it is our duty as providing a facility for the people of Blackford to cover for the fact that the school does not provide a safe and adequate facility for the children that the parents are happy with. If we open it up completely, we can only see that we will be completely overrun with parents using the facility if they feel that it is open to anybody. The number of people that use the school loop will naturally flow down there, and it will be a chaotic and unsupervised facility down there. If the parents recognise that they have a issue with the school and take it up with them, then maybe we can get involved in the solution. But at the moment, we are putting the children at risk. We believe when you look at them running around the car park, and the parents who have no supervision or guidance are putting those children at risk. We took the decision over a number of years, and as Pete said, that it's not by any means a unanimous decision, and it's an unhappy decision, but what we want is action to be taken so that a good solution comes out for everybody at the end.
Thank you.
What action are you expecting or hoping them to take?
Well, a very simple solution would be if the parents want to use that facility, which is for the village hall community, the people who use the village hall, and at the moment it gets in the way of not many people use it.
Not the playground users as well.
No, the playground is a different issue, and I will address the playground issue. If the parents choose to hire the hall for an hour every day, then they're entitled to use the car park, but they will be responsible for supervising the use of that car park, and make sure it's done in a safe way, and that children are not left behind by parents who are distracted and are unable to attend. What happens if a child does not get picked up? If they're at school on the loop, the school look after them and take them back into school. You know, if a parent can't make it, the child is left in the village.
Has that ever happened? Has a child ever been kicked?
Whoa, guys, come on. It's Charlotte, please.
Children have been left, whether deliberately or not, where somebody goes and picks them up from either Wetmore First School or even Cheddar Kings of Wessex. And they are, and that is the, as I said, that is, what I said, that is the you know, the fear of, when I say fear, the question mark over the responsibility, if it's known as to be, if all of a sudden, and if Councillor Whittingham says it's so many years, then in so many years it won't become the Blackford Village Hall car park, it'll become a community car park. But you know,
This is what I think it is, actually.
well, I don't think,
Can I just
one
final
guys,
Can I just deal with this issue of children being left in the car park? I find it incredible that anyone suggesting that if a child was left at all, it would be standing in a puddle in the car park. It would be in the swing park.
May well be.
If you're happy with that, if you're happy with that thought, and you're happy that we should take responsibility for that?
Yes.
Well, why would you take responsibility for
That's
the swing
just
park?
brings it forward then, that if, you know, we need to, as a committee, the whole committee, and I have a foot in both camps, we need to say that the Parish Council have advised us, through Mr Whittingham or whoever, that, you know, that is the safe thing to do. And if someone runs into us, as the children do run about down there, I mean, I go down there a lot. I mean, I know you go down a huge amount, but it's you know, they run out. No, they do. They run out because the children come down around the top. I mean, last Wednesday.
The issue of safety rests with the parents. I don't see why the village hall committee or the management committee for the village should take any responsibility at all for the safety of these things.
Any more than we take responsibility for the village car.
Exactly, and I think that's just a blinder. The fact of the matter is, it sounds to me from what you've said, that if they hire the hall for an hour, it's all fine and dandy. Now that's just a financial issue.
Why doesn't the school extend their own?
Because the hirer takes responsibility.
It's money.
Well, why do they need to hire the hall for an hour? If they hire the hall for an
Can
hour,
we hear them out?
it's possible.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, I had one final point to make on the play area. When the parish council asked for us to give permission to have a kissing gate to allow people into it, I have a letter dated in 1983 that explains that we will allow the people to park in the car park to use the play area. One particular clause was use of the Blackford Village Hall car park for access to the play area must be governed by standing rules established by the Village Hall Committee relating to the use of the Village Hall with proper regard for the convenience of other users and the security of the car park and hall. So we have a document here that where we gave permission so long as it doesn't interfere with our ability to provide a facility for paying members of the village hall.
Well, that's fair enough, isn't it?
No.
Not fair enough?
No, I'm trying to stop Charlotte.
No, that's it, have an opinion.
You can't, sorry, it's a council
Can we
meeting.
not remove this lady? I mean, this is not
Charlotte,
fair.
you're not allowed to speak, my love. Sorry, you've had an opportunity.
No, this is, you know, this is
Right, apologies, I'm not a councillor, so I don't know your rules and regulations, and at no point did anybody inform me of what the rules and regulations were. So maybe,
But we are now.
that's fine, I will take that on board, that's not a problem, but I don't appreciate being told that I need to leave.
No, it's all right.
I didn't
Charlotte.
say you must leave. I was trying to...
Guys, we're getting out of hand here. Charlotte, please, can you be quiet from now onwards? All right. We were.
I have said yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, you guys down there. Does anybody from the parish have something they'd like to say? I mean, we've heard a number of arguments. I'm not sure we've got anywhere with this discussion.
I'd like to make a proposal.
I would be very pleased to hear a proposal.
I'd like to propose that the parish council write to the Blackford Village Hall Committee expressing regret for the decision to close the gate and ask them to reconsider.
No?
I'd second that.
Right. Formal letter.
We need to vote.
Question. Could we have a vote on that? We have a formal proposal, we have it seconded. Do we have a vote, please, from the committee?
All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4. And against, Chairman, please.
And those who are against it?
1, 2, 3.
Actually, 4. Okay, so we're going to have a formal, look forward to a formal letter asking you to
We will formally reply, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you for your time, thank you for your patience. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks,
Right.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your opportunity to speak.
Have you got as far as that?
We've lost our sense of humour.
Utterly.
Right, to consider reinstating CCTV coverage and enhanced lighting at the car park. Steve?
Oh yes, thanks. So very quickly, I asked that to go on the agenda, bearing in mind what we've heard previously about goings on down the car park. A number of people have said that it's very dark walking down the alley there. Two things. One, I think we need to consider enhancing the lighting, low-level lighting, not high-level lighting. And also, if we've got a CCTV camera down there, it doesn't work. It must have been installed for a reason. It seems a sensible thing to have. Can we get it costed and maybe reinstate?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I totally agree with the lighting. I think we should think about CCTV because I think if you do have drug dealing going on in there, if you put a camera in, they'll just deal round the corner from it.
Fine.
Okay, and I did take a bit of advice about this by somebody who's in the know. And what I was told was that actually if you have somebody taking a note of what's going on in an area, it has just as much weight as CCTV. So I thought we might want to think about that before.
Well,
we
who's
go
going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, neighbours, if neighbours are willing or want to
24 hours a day.
No, just keep a log of comings and goings. If there is a fear of dealing.
Nobody actually overlooks that car.
Okay, fair enough. I just brought
It's
it
all
up
there,
as a
it's
way.
all-
Apparently, it has just as much weight.
Right, thanks, Julia. That's a good one. Right,
I thought somebody was already doing that.
Can I just say, Chairman, last year we had a contractor, a CCTV contractor come in. Our system, that was there when the car park was built, is now obsolete. It will not work at all. You have to have direct line of sight to where you're going to view the pictures from. We can't get direct line of sight of the car park. The alternative is they put some sort of monitoring device up in the car park in a locked cabinet, which means that somebody's going to go up and check it on a daily basis, or when there's incident, and change tapes and things like this. And so it's the practicalities and the cost of CCTV is horrendous for that sort of thing. And I can't think of any other car parks in our district, village car parks or Cheddar, Axbridge or wherever, have got CCTV in them. Maybe the big town centre ones in Bridgewater.
I mean, I do believe there were residents down there who were meant to be monitoring it, but don't think that we've also just had a big drugs bust.
Yeah, I think it was the drugs issue that they were monitoring.
Yeah, and I think that
It was
he's been
the-
busted, hasn't he, down there?
Yeah.
I think the lighting's been mentioned by the architect staff in there. They all walk down there every night. And I know the ladies in there are very worried about it. And I think that's something we could probably address quite easy with CCTV.
Could I make a suggestion? It sounds to me there's an issue of cost and resource in implementing the CCTV camera. Could we get a security company to come and make a proposal to us at no charge?
Probably. There was one last year.
Was there?
But I mean, yeah.
I've never seen the proposal.
They came out and looked and said, can't do anything about it, we can't get direct line of sight.
But if you think that would be useful,
Well, I don't mind organising it.
I think you've got a contact, haven't you?
No, he won't come back, he's looking.
Oh, right.
Well,
Okay.
just
Just
go on the market.
If you
If I don't make a
would,
proposal, we just get a proposal and then we can decide whether it's viable or not.
yeah, okay, that's
I
a
think
good one.
we ought to progress the lighting. So.
Yes, and the lighting.
I think the lighting makes good sense.
Yeah.
This line of sight, could it not be directed somewhere else?
Well, it's got to be somewhere that can monitor them.
Well, it could be bounced, I guess, is what you get now.
Well, I think it's a good idea, Steve.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Can I make a proposal that we get some costings for the lighting initially and obviously still just going
I mean, the low level bollard type lighting.
Yeah.
low level, some sort of lighting.
It is really.
The neighbours don't like the
Is this for vandalism and
Pedestrian
safety,
access.
really. For the girls to come to work from where they leave their
In
cars.
the evenings,
Those little paths through the council houses, they were very dark.
Can I take it as a proposal? Let's put it forward. Seconded. And there's a
so
consensus.
those people look at Bradford as well, if we've got the same responsibility?
Well, that'd be
Go
more
with
of a
Bradford
whole-
again. Bradford for one night.
Say that again, Pete.
No,
I was sort of hoping I hadn't heard that.
I thought it was to do with the vandalism of the car, but it's not, it's a social issue.
Yeah.
It is.
We got a social issue.
What, do you want to put lights in there so the kids can be dropped?
Yeah, you know.
Do it at night.
Just like the check.
Pete, I'm loath to ignore what you just said, actually. I'm not quite... Pete, can we come back to that one when we've had an idea about what our prices are going to be? All right?
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
10-10. Oh, very small change here. Remember we agreed the other week that we were going to make a donation, and it wasn't really a donation, we were going to pool our annual contribution to the Wedmore Village Hall. We were going to squeeze it and we were going to make a single £3,000 payment. Now it would seem that it would come back to us with a suggestion that actually if they paid us, it's very similar to what Black did, if they paid us their earnings from, I think, your bit, and I think Mike Rippon's going to put some money together. If they give us that money, then we can give them a single lump sum for the cost, or half the cost, of the seating, and get the VAT back. Are you happy with us doing that?
Can we make a conditional on them still allowing the ability to use the car park?
No. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've given them a nod and a wink,
Sounds
but
sensible.
Yeah, sounds a good idea.
yeah, better have. Oh, do you think we need a proposal? No, yeah. What do you reckon? Do you need a proposal?
It might be a good idea, it's on here, so.
Okay.
I'll propose that for the same sort of thing.
Are you happy to? Is the committee? Are you happy to do that, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll do this tomorrow. Right, 10-11. Annual burial grants.
Yeah, the annual burial grants, Chair, just to approve these, please, it's £100 each to the Methodist Church, Blackford Church and Field Church. Wedmore get it as well, but they actually pay us something for a contribution for cutting the grass on their upper cemetery. So it's just to approve the annual burial grants of £100 to local churches.
You happy with that, everybody?
Proposal for that, please.
Proposal.
Do you think we should?
Thank
you.
Second. Right.
Thank you, Alex.
Presentation, representation and remembrance. Yeah, it's the 12th of November. Could I actually, I mean, there's nothing really to debate here. Could I just encourage as many committee members as possible to attend? Which would be nice, please, if you would.
Would somebody like to read a lesson? We've had a
Oh,
request
no,
of
I
it.
can't read.
She's lost her hands suddenly.
No, don't like reading. No.
Louise did it very well, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, Louise has done it, and Dennis has done it, and I've done it. I mean, I will do it again. I will do it again, but you know, if somebody else would like to do it, they're ever so welcome to. Just to so that more. Alex, I mean, we'd love to do it.
I'd love to do it.
Thank you, Alex.
You can thank Polly for that, mate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, lovely. Yeah, as many as possible, please, would be very nice. Some Christmas trees.
Yeah, Chairman, the usual thing, we're approving the purchase of the Christmas trees for the businesses. Last year we had a very good deal, thanks to Suzanne. It cost us £293 for a couple of the village and the church. Churches. The previous years it was up in the 500, so we did a very good saving last year. Thank you for that.
Yes, just a note on that.
Yeah.
I went to pick up my Christmas tree from the place I normally go to last year. And they said, oh, we haven't got any left, we're all village. Council. So I know now that I have to go early.
Yeah.
So is it all right if I liaise with them and do it all?
Yeah,
I think that would
we've got
be
the
great.
list, haven't we?
I've got the list, and I have changed it quite a bit.
And just bear in mind the churches want the extra ones.
Yes, I've done it all that.
She's on it.
Go on, Suzanne. You hadn't finished, then. You were saying you had changed it quite a bit.
No, I've changed it a little bit. I've checked on those that really need them and those that perhaps would like a larger one, and then it all balances itself out. And you're not going to charge a tremendous lot more anyway.
Can I ask Chairman when they're arriving?
Yes, the beginning of December.
They normally come before, just before the lamplight, isn't it?
No, we want them by the beginning of December so everybody can get them.
I don't think the churches will want them that early.
Well, the churches may not get them that early, but the ones for the just leave it with me, could you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Suzanne, very much. You have storage facilities for.
No problem.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to leave it in your hands.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, as far as the, I know it's quite far in advance, but actually putting up the big church Christmas tree is now the responsibility of the church.
Church, yes.
Just to make it clear.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
That's quite a struggle.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We embarrassed ourselves a bit last year, didn't we? Sorry about that. All right, 10:14. Grant toward Wedmore by lamplights. Suzanne?
Well, again, if you have given it to us for the last 4 years, it would be very nice if you could possibly consider giving it to us again this year. There could be a change about what we use the money for. We want to put a lot of lights up, which is going to be expensive. We did it last year, but if we could, if you would consider making a grant, then we can use it. And if we don't use it, we'll give it back to you.
How much?
I can say that was the next question.
You gave us 360 last time.
£300 plus VAT. We paid the bill for the street entertainments.
Yeah, one of them.
Well, they sent the invoice and I paid that.
Yeah,
£300 plus VAT.
Have a proposal?
Of,
Seconded?
of how much, sorry?
I don't know. What would be appropriate? Do you want a
300.
specific figure or up to £500 or up to £400?
We don't want to do that, do you?
No. You're a bit good with money.
£300 plus that.
Same.
That's okay. I'll do that.
Okay, moving on. The notice boards at Blackford.
Oh yes.
Sorry, Cockley and the Alliance.
What a Cockley post
What
office.
about the update from the neighbourhood plan?
I'll give you part about that because I thought we'd gone on for a long time.
Sorry.
No, I missed it out. It was a genuine error. Sorry, Steve.
Very quickly, we're doing a road show here now at the end of November. We're doing one day and one afternoon and evening in the village hall, and we're doing 3 sessions here in the parish rooms just for people who can't get to the village hall. We're at the moment preparing all the stuff for the presentation on the sites that have been nominated and our assessment of those sites, plus various other policy proposals and a vision based on the questionnaire that was sent back to us for people to comment on. So hopefully everybody in the parish council will attend that and give some feedback.
Yeah,
and everybody will have a leaflet.
And there'll be leaflets and banners and
tell you when it's happening. So there'll be 3 sessions in here, so it gives the chance for everybody to get a chance to come and see it. And it'll
What
be
is that?
online.
November? Just roughly, November?
Yeah. November the 24th is the Saturday, and then it's the following week.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't it? I think I'm doing the
November the
30th.
25th is a Saturday.
Oh, it's the 24th that's the... Yeah.
24th in the village hall.
So it's a public display, it's over 3 days, isn't it?
Well, no, the Saturday the 24th is in the village hall, and then the following week we're going to do 3 days, we'll just pause and people just walk around in it, and there'll be 1 or 2 of us here to make sure it's facilitated.
One of them will be on the Saturday though, so that gives the people who are working a chance.
Just for information, Cheddar have now submitted theirs, their neighbourhood plan. It's interesting to look at it. Anyway.
Thank you very much. Number 16, notice boards.
Yeah, Chairman, the notice board at Cockley Post Office is disintegrated. I've had Mark Discard, who did the other ones for us, have a look at them. And he's quoting to do one up there, the same size, and also one of the allotments for £72 each. They'll be painted black, white lettering, and they'll look quite smart, I think. So.
Are we happy with that?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very
When
much.
do you want?
Cluster group meeting. How do you go, Paul?
Oh, you'll be very pleased. I took notes and everything. I stayed awake at the cluster meeting. I had to go on my own, so I did stay awake because there's no one else to take notes. So there was a Hinkley update. David Eccles was there. A little film about the apprentices and stuff, and a video of the jetty construction. And the jetty, when it's up and running, will take 80% of aggregates. But up until then, it will go by road on the A38 from Cheddar.
This is stuff that's going to be going in by boat, isn't it?
Yeah. So all of their jetty. So they're constructing the jetty. They're doing some deep excavations. I'm going to make these deep excavations, and then that will bring the water to the nuclear cooling bits. And anyway, it's all a bit nuclear, but it's all about junctions of traffic, park and ride, 1,000 bed spaces in Bridgewater being created, more on site. And then we talked about community safety. Tackling antisocial behaviour, hate crime, safeguarding vulnerable people, included counter-terrorism, managing impact of Hinkley Point. And then I can't remember what the last bit was about.
Yeah, the budget consultation on 27.
Because I left because it was, I think, about 20 to 9 and I'd lost the will. So
it was about budget consultation.
Well, there we are. I did get, I don't know whether Rob got one of these to everyone to just update you, but
thank you.
That was it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Right, and again. Now there's 3 of you went to. How did the training session go? It's not on the minutes.
Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah.
Very quickly, you'll be getting, Rod should be getting a copy of these slides. An excellent session, a very intensive evening. You'll get a copy. It'd be nice if you circulate them, because there's some stuff in there that even, we can't remember. It was so rapid, it was such a many topics covered.
It was the planning meeting, was it?
Yeah. One of the big things that is going to affect us come 1st of January, they're no longer going to be sending out to you paper plans of planning applications. So you won't get drawings, plans or anything after the 1st of January, they told us. So we need to think about buying a digital projector. There isn't.
Step up, Alex.
Well, the main decision is you've got to decide where you want to put the screen if you're going to do the projector. It's either there or it's over there, basically. But that's perhaps for another agenda item.
Anyway, it's just that we better flag that up.
Yeah, please, thank
We need
you.
to get some costs in that. There is a quick alternative in the short term, apparently. If Rod would download what he gets into a PDF file, he would then circulate as a PDF file. But, you know, you're looking at small screens and blah, blah, blah. Sue's kindly put together some quick notes on some of the main issues of that.
I've left it at home.
Oh, good.
That's all right, it's fine. Next time will be brilliant.
There was lots of interesting stuff on affordable housing, the local plan. Nick Tate said that with the changes now that the government are putting on now, the emphasis they're putting on housing, he will be surprised if it's kicked back based on the numbers. We may see increases in numbers of housing requirements in the area.
Yep.
One of the big concerns in some of the villages, like us I should think, is that we'll be expected to take our share of the district housing requirement.
Because we're tier 2.
Yeah.
One of the things that the naval plan team are looking at, and it'll come back to the council to have a look at and give some thought to, is setting up a community land trust, which will enable the community to control the social and affordable housing in the village and who lives in them.
We've come across this before, haven't we?
So we've got a lot of documentation on it, and maybe sometime we'll kind of give you a heads up on it, because it's a way that the parish can manage its own social and affordable housing through a trust and control the people who use that.
Right, okay, well, I think...
But there was one important point that came up, was that we're in tier 2, and so are Netherstowe, Puritan, Axbridge and Lavington. And all 4 of those have put up objections to being in tier 2, to be downgraded to tier 3, on the grounds that tier 2s will have to accept a proportion of the district. If they fall out, that leaves us and Cannington as the only tier 2 settlements, if their objections are upheld. Which the question is that we need to be asking them, does that mean that we are going to have to take on the slack from Netherstowe, Axbridge and all the rest of them?
I think you can assume that, isn't it? You're going to give us some notes for next time?
I will actually, if you want, I will just need to ask a question, because we only did it today, so I need to tidy it up, and I'll distribute it electronically. I'll send you all an email.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's very good.
Read it.
Moving on. Oh, sorry I stuck that one in, by the way. It wasn't I just remembered it. Issues and questions raised by councillors. Before we start, could I just remind you of a little conversation we had some time ago about not necessarily saving up all those little issues and things that really don't require the whole committee to consider, and maybe just bring them up as they arise. I mean, okay, fine, if the committee does need to consider them, then now is the time to do it. But, you know, trivial things like, I don't know,
ditch blocked or
that sort of stuff, it could just be brought up with Rod or somebody at any old time, not necessarily saved for now. Having said that, issues and questions raised by councillors.
Going round the room.
Mike? Nick?
Well, it has been raised before, that's why I'm going to say it again. I did raise it last time, and I know it's a trivial one, but it is the Lurburn. It's really overgrown, it needs cutting.
Okay.
It was
I
on
did
the
report
agenda.
it previously, I'll report it again.
Thank you so much. Who'll deal with it then?
Angus,
Oh, they?
Liam Gill's crowd.
Oh, okay, well I'll email him then.
Yeah,
Great,
okay.
I'll send that.
Laura, anything around?
No.
Luke?
No.
Sue?
Unfortunately, yes. I've found 2 people come into the shop and say that they've been living in a third world country when they walk past the George.
Sorry, that's
Sorry, that's not true.
And now it's smelling.
Remember when you and I had the
Yeah.
conversation? I went along out of smell and I couldn't smell anything.
It
chose a lucky day.
does smelling.
It does.
It's not all the time, but there is.
Lord knows only about it.
Yeah, I had a local resident come in the other day about the same sort of thing. While I was there, we rang the environmental health officer at Sedgmoor. She has now spoken to BT and told them to get their act together. She's in daily contact with them. There's nothing more we can do as a parish council. I mean, it's not, you know, we passed it through the right authority. It's BT have got to repair, get the job repaired. They've got all the gates around it and things like this. But it's purely a matter, I think it might be an insurance job.
So it's BT.
It's BT, they caused the damage to an underground pipe when they were putting that green box against it. That's what the job was. They are responsible.
I can tell people.
Yeah. And you can also tell them the environmental health officer is also on the case. And if they don't do anything within a certain time, like she will issue them with an enforcement notice.
And the Parish Council on the case.
We can't add any more weight to it. I mean, we've gone as far as we can.
Yeah,
We can't
that's
escalate
brilliant.
any more.
That is brilliant.
I thought it was in 2 cases.
It's all in one place. It's one whole.
Yeah.
It's one pipe
That's
anyway.
really
It's damaged.
good. And then I have another one, and it is, like you said, I've got overgrown things, but I'll do those with Rod later.
Yeah.
But I had a lady, and she came in complaining about the fact that there are going to be solar panels on the back of the village hall. And there are very few people that overlook the back of the village hall. Probably less than a handful. But she just said she wanted it noted. I've since spoken to Mike Ribbon, and apparently most of the panels on the solar panels that are going to go on the village hall are going to go on the flat roof, not on the actual sloping roof. Some of them are, but not very many. A lot of them are actually going on the flat roof. So just to give you
for information.
For your information.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I could never hear that again. Steve, you got anything, mate?
No, thank you, Nick.
Suzanne?
No, mine was George, that was all.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Right, I've got nothing useful there. Well, just the silent motion. But you're saying that's...
The silent motion has been taken, I think it's gone by now, or John Bethel's taken away, and he's going to take it away and amend it and paint it.
Correspondence.
I circulated most things of interest.
Julie, village agent.
Oh, yes.
There was a chance that she was going to be here tonight.
Was there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in fairness, we did put her off because we had a
Well,
feeling it was going to be.
She's coming next meeting.
So next meeting.
Excellent. Well, I've met her.
Kirsty.
Yeah, Kirsten, yeah. It's very good.
Okay, that's the only thing I had to really bring to your attention about from correspondence. Committee reports.
Cemetery.
Right, cemetery.
Well, we haven't had a meeting, but I would just like to thank everyone that came to help with the clearing up of the paths and things. It's a lot better now.
Did you read the letter?
No, what paper, what letter?
Yeah, it was a very vicious letter about the cemetery.
Oh, was that?
Yes, it was. It's a really vicious letter.
Was it? I haven't seen that.
Yes, it was in the Western Daily Press, and it accused the parish of, you know, supporting other things, but not the cemetery, and it was like it was a really vicious letter.
But it didn't write to us, yeah?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were joking.
No, it's in the Western Daily Press.
Well, this week.
No, I think it was last week. Wasn't it?
I
It must have been. It must have been. Right? I'm not.
It's all been.
Well, no, I mean, you know, this is.
We had a funeral there yesterday, and they used a Tom path, and it was beautiful.
No, I mean, but that letter appeared, well, Edwin, you know.
Who was it, you know? Was it
Anonymous.
So I had, just for clearness, I was at a function on Sunday and a resident probably quite close, who lives quite close to the cemetery, complained about brambles being cut down and then being left on the pavement.
They're being cleared today.
Right.
They're probably not there now as we speak. Because Will was going up, when he handed his time sheet, straight up to do the pavement.
Marvellous, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Go on, Sue.
No, it's all right.
Thank you. Right, facilities and allotments. Nothing?
No, I'm sorry, yes. Can we take a photograph and send it to Western Daily Press? Of
Well, I haven't seen the letter,
what we
so-
spent all that day doing in there. Give them a photograph of how lovely it looks now.
But you mean the cemetery?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever, I mean, it's just Edward and I then, we picked it up, but it was in letters, and it was, I think it was signed, Webmore resident.
What
But
are they
it-
complaining about?
Well, because it was like a wilderness, it was dreadful.
I think you're right then.
Well, I hope that.
But that's a fair comment, so do you think maybe would you fancy having a go at that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you want to see what the letter says first.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile.
There's no
Yeah, because the week after you put yours in, the woman will say, well, I just assumed it may be a male, then they will say, well, I did that, and they cleared it up.
Oh yeah, I take all the credit for it. I only have to write a letter to
That's
the
what I'm supposed to do, isn't it?
Finance and general purposes.
Sorry,
No, you're all right.
they write to us, I wouldn't bother.
Finance and general purposes?
No, you'll be meeting in December.
December, won't we? Housing,
Sure, that's all right.
we're going to say now's a good time then, isn't it?
Well, last Friday, members,
So,
last Friday I had a phone call from a representative of Acorn Property Company. They are interested in Cross Farm. And the gentleman on the phone rang me and said, we have exchanged contracts with the Tinkles. And I said, oh, that's good, because you're the first developer of the house. He said, yes, we are very serious about this. And he said, and we want to come and talk to the Parish Council about our intentions there. And he wanted to come along tonight, but obviously. So what I said to him, I'll get back to him after this meeting and fix up a night when he could come and talk. There'll be another informal briefing, I think it'll be a private meeting. What I was going to suggest, we've got a planning meeting next Wednesday, Chairman. There's only one item on the agenda, which is a Vodafone mast at Basket Hill, which we ought to be discussing. I thought if I asked them to get here for sort of 7:45, we could, perhaps everybody else could come along after the planning meeting and just see what they've got to say, because I haven't got a clue what they want to do.
So it's on Wednesday.
so we're looking at 25th.
Yeah, but they're certainly, they have exchanged contracts, they said.
So you suggesting we start something with the clean one?
No, I think the planning will get to 7:30, but I'll get here somewhere. You happy with that, Alex?
Absolutely, we've got 5 minutes.
Some of the farmers can't get here for up to
25th.
Yes, next Wednesday.
Right, lovely. Highways, car park and Brook. Lincoln.
Oh, yeah, I've got a long list now.
Your life's worth.
We'll make Gary's, don't
Planning next Wednesday, you say?
Yeah,
25th.
planning Wednesday.
Right, reports from on committees, representatives on committees.
No, nothing
Are there
about
more? No. Claire is.
It's just me and Jo Durant on the Blackford Play Area Committee at the moment, and Jo's very worried about her duties, and Rod and I have corresponded with her, and what I haven't checked, Rod, is that are we on the same page?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what we did was I described the play area not as a subcommittee of the Parish Council, the Play Area Committee, but it's an advisory. What's the proper word? Advisory body or something?
Something like that.
So basically, it's not able to take any financial decisions on behalf of the council. That's in that category. And she's worried, of course, about access to the play area, because people are asking her as a Blackford resident. And
we've got insurance cover, and we contribute towards the repurposing of equipment as well.
Yes. Thank you. That's all for me.
Teal, no. No new. So I guess there's nothing to worry about. Sulk. Got a meeting coming up on the 28th. It's the annual general meeting of Sulk. Now, I understand, Glenn, you volunteered to go.
Yeah, I went last year. I
Enjoyed
went away there.
I went with you last year. Anybody else fancy having to go?
What date is it going to be?
It's a Saturday.
It's Saturday.
It's something.
It's all day.
It's
What day,
like
I
10
mean?
o'clock through till 3 or 4.
I don't know
3 o'clock.
whether something might be worth
Good lunch.
There's a nice lunch. There's a nice lunch. I have to say. Does anybody fancy going? Hello. Does anybody fancy going with Dennis?
I think that'll be a no. That's because no one's
I
responded.
think I've only heard of
I'll think about it.
Just like,
Have a check.
yeah, I'll check as well. Maybe Glenn's will be you and I again.
I expect so, I don't know.
Where more playing fields? No, Jess. Village Hall. Oh, sorry, Laura.
I wasn't able to make the meeting on
Oh, you went, did you?
I couldn't go.
Oh, you couldn't go?
Village Hall. Field. Wetmore.
Big meeting tomorrow.
Blackford?
I think I've said too much anyway.
Yeah.
Right, matters of report and items for next meeting. We've done that. North Chine Drove. Someone's burning rubbish. It's not actually our patch, but it's not. Yeah, well, it's
Where
house
is
clearance.
it? Where is it?
North Chine. It's sort of below Mudgley, bottom of.
The first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereabouts is that?
What, Mudgley?
No, not Chine, the bottom of Mudgley.
Yeah.
Marty Hill in the
Go over there. Oh, right.
The motorway that they just re-tarmacked with 15
You go down there really fast.
feet of... No. But anyway, it is meant, it is meant, yeah, I know, but what's happened is that someone's contacted me, who actually is one of our parishioners, because all the flaming smoke's blowing all over his stuff.
You're still going to get member enforcement officers.
Well, he's actually gone straight to environmental health, and they are acting, but just so you know, if someone turns around and says there's a flaming permanent bonfire there, something's happening. Got anything, Rob?
No.
Members?
Just to make sure we can follow up on the requirement for digital download of the plans, probably next meeting, because that's going to be...
Yeah, but you're going to be talking about that, or you'll be giving us notes.
No. Oh, we'll give you notes, yes, we need to follow up on the next meeting, is that all right?
Yeah, I think so.
And if the council wants an update on the community land trust, just a head up, just to see in principle sometime, not suggesting that meeting, but in the future.
Yeah. The answer was no, Sue. Come on.
Rob, is the pipe for the cemetery going ahead?
Yes, the tap, yes, that is. I read the this morning, it should be done by now. The chap Paul is doing it, was out in the office, so he's still...
Right. 12 minutes past 9. Close. Sorry, guys.
Steve, I'm just writing you a note.
Did you actually